Deccan Chronicle. Mr. Panun seems to have deviated from his own agenda and now come down to Sikh versus Hindus in Canada, and he has threatened the Hindu community to leave to leave Canada, and he's also threatened to carry out a referendum against the Indian High Commissioner on 28th of October. Has the Indian government sought protection for the Hindus and the Indian High Commissioner or Indian diplomats in Canada?
Okay. Siddhant, welcome. I have a funny feeling a lot of questions on a particular topic.
Sir, Siddhant from Vion, continuing with the question on Canada. The Canadian Prime Minister used words like potential link, and we saw the Foreign Minister also using words like maybe, if proven. We also saw comments of the US Ambassador yesterday saying that the investigation can be prejudiced. How do you, or what do you make out of these comments which are coming out?
Okay, thank you. Pranay, I'll come to you.
So Pranay Upadhyay, CNBC News से कनाडा के साथ हमारी स्ट्रैटेजिक पार्टनरशिप है, लेकिन स्ट्रैटेजिक पार्टनरशिप में जिस समय की ऐसी स्थिति है तो क्या वो भी रिव्यू में, और दूसरी चीज़ एक क्लैरिफिकेशन चाहिए था कि BLS जो कि वीज़ा प्रोसेसिंग एजेंसी है उसने नोटिफिकेशन लगाया है कि वीज़ा प्रोसेसिंग सस्पेंडेड है इस समय, तो क्या उसका स्टेटस है, क्या कनाडा से इंडियन वीज़ा इस समय सस्पेंड है?
Yeah, no, sorry, you had a hand up before me. Go ahead, Manish. Yeah.
So again, on the this is Manas from PTI Press Trust of India. Again, on the Canada issue, Canada has given very clear indications that it has, briefed the US, Australia, and its strategic allies on the overall controversy and the accusation that Indian agents were involved in killing of a Sikh separatist in Canada. So have we also actually, in fact, got in touch with our allies like US and UK and other Western partners on the whole issue?
Okay. Normally I usually take 4 or 5 questions, but I think there are a lot of hands on this. Similar questions on that. No, I saw your hand first, ma'am. Go ahead. I'll come to you. I'll try to take a few more. I think it's similar questions. You can answer together.
Hi, I'm Megha Sharma from NewsX, and the Pakistani Foreign Ministry has also responded on it. It's taken the name of Kulbhushan Jadhav and said that there has been espionage and sabotage that has taken place on the soil of Pakistan by the government of India. How do you react to this? How does the Ministry of External Affairs...
Can we limit ourselves to Canada for the moment? Because I think there's a lot of Canada questions. Is that related to Canada? If not, I'll come back to you.
This is Pakistan, and Pakistan has responded to what the
Canadian thing. But Kulbhushan Jadhav you mentioned. Okay.
Kulbhushan Jadhav,
if it's on Canada, I'll come back.
Been...
I will take the question on Canada. Okay. Right. Yeah, Canada. I'll come to you. All of you. I saw your hand a little later. I apologize.
Sir, मैं मनीष हूँ TV18 से और हमारा सवाल ये है कि
Microphone. नहीं, माइक्रोफोन नहीं चल रहा।
हेलो,
हाँ
जी मैं मनीष हूँ TV9 से और मेरा सवाल ये है कि लाखों भारतीय कनाडा में रह रहे हैं, उनके परिवार की चिंता है इस वक्त, खास करके जब रोजाना हम एक्शन और रिएक्शन कर रहे हैं दोनों देशों की तरफ से, तो ये भी है कि कल के दिन में बहुत सारे लोग जो वीज़ा अप्लाई कर रहे हैं उनका प्राइस
नहीं, आपका क्वेश्चन क्लियर नहीं है। आप क्या वो डर रहे हैं इंडियन गवर्नमेंट के एक्शन से?
नहीं, उनका डर ये है कि वो कनाडा में जो लोग हैं वहाँ पर उनकी सिक्योरिटी को लेकर या उनके जॉब को लेकर या उनके स्टडी को लेकर जो कंसर्न है, उसको किस तरह से भारत सरकार
समझ गया। जी, या गो अहेड।
I'm Sahil from ANI. Since there are multiple threats to our High Commission and consulates in Canada, is Government of India planning to send its own security as well in that case?
Okay. Yeah, go ahead. So I gave you the floor that time, but you weren't ready.
Sir, Shrutinandhan from Bloomberg. Sir, can you confirm whether Canada shared any evidence, with us on this particular, before making this allegation in the Parliament? And also whether India, or how many times India has shared its concerns and evidence on Niger with Canada, and what was their response to it? And an associated question.
What is the second part?
I mean, did India share evidence on Niger and the other suspected Khalistani,
The second question, okay. Can we hold on? We'll come back to more. Okay. Can we wait another one? I've got a whole list. But
and are we going to join the investigation?
I'll come back to you. Why don't I take yours? Yes, go ahead. Yeah, you. Yeah.
Hi, sir. Rajesh here from the Wall Street Journal. Wanted to ask a question. Just a second.
Not ready?
Beyond issuing robust denials, what is India's strategy on countering the allegation, which carries a risk of reputational harm to India's global standing?
Okay. Fair enough. If it's just on this, otherwise I still see many hands. Maybe one more round? Yeah.
Sir, Meghna from DD News. Is ME considering any specific advisory for the Hindu Canadians? Because we have seen an advisory for Indian nationals and students, but anything specific in view of the threats that have emerged?
Okay. Maybe I will hold off. I think I just see too many hands around. Okay. Let me start with some of the... Rishabh, your query was on diplomats, Canadian diplomats here. Yes, we have informed the Canadian government that there should be parity in strength and rank equivalence in our diplomatic presence, in mutual diplomatic presence. Their numbers here are very much higher than ours in Canada. The details of this are being worked out, but I assume there will be a reduction from the Canadian side. There was a query, I think you mentioned, let me take it in a different order. Siddhant, you had a comment on words used by Canadian Prime Minister, Foreign Minister, and then the US Ambassador, right? Yes, I do think there is a degree of prejudice here, They have made the allegations, they have taken action on them. To us, it seems or it appears that these allegations by the Government of Canada are primarily politically driven. Manush, your query was on briefing our partners, etc. Look, on this one, as I said, we have been, of course, engaged with our partners on various issues, particularly including this one. We have been discussing with them. We have conveyed our position, how we see these developments. And I think those are part of ongoing conversations, but I'm happy to share a little more if you wish to talk about it. I will. I'll come back to that. I just thought I'll mention, Manish, I'll come back to Manish because let me just make a couple of other points. I think, Sudhi, you had a query about Canada sharing any information. No, let me clarify. No specific information has been shared by Canada on this case, either then or before or after. We have, as we have said, or I think it's been made very clear, we are willing to look at any specific information. We have conveyed this to the Canadian side, made it clear to them that we are willing to look at any specific information that is provided to us. But so far, we have not received any such specific information. There was a indirect question on that. Let me also point out that from our side, very specific evidence about criminal activities by individuals based on Canadian soil has been shared with the Canadian authorities on a regular basis, but not been acted upon. So that is answer to both sides of it, I think you asked. There was a query on, I'll come back. There was a query regarding from, I think, मनीष झा, आपका प्रश्न था सिक्योरिटी पे. देखिए सिक्योरिटी के मामले पे आपने पूछा था हमारे हाँ देखिए हमने इसलिए एडवाइजरी इशू की है और डिटेल एडवाइजरी है उनको क्या करना चाहिए. एक प्रश्न और था कि कुछ ग्रुप्स या हिंदूज अलग से नहीं. एडवाइजरी सारे इंडियन नेशनल्स के लिए, हम इस तरह से नहीं देखते. इंडियन नेशनल्स के लिए है, स्टूडेंट्स के लिए है, जो ट्रैवल कर रहे हैं, जो वहाँ रह रहे हैं, उनके सबके लिए एडवाइजरी है. एंड हम चाहेंगे कि वो उस एडवाइजरी को देखें और पालन करें उसका. Sahil, your query was on whether we are sending security. No, look, we have always believed that it is the host government's responsibility to provide security. If there is some places we have our own security posture also, but look, I don't want to discuss security measures in public. That's not an appropriate situation. If I could come back to what Manush, you asked about. As I said, we have ongoing conversations with friends and partners. We have made our position quite clear to them on the lines that I've outlined just now. That's why I thought I'll outline our position first, that there has been no specific information, and we're willing to look at that if provided. On the issue of a threat, Vinita, you mentioned for various things. Look, I don't know how to react to this. We obviously condemn any threat. But look, the overall, I think we should look at the larger issue. The larger issues of terrorism, and not just terrorism, but also the fact that it is being funded and supported, and we know this for some time from our western neighbor Pakistan. But the issue of safe havens and places to operate is being provided abroad, including in Canada, and that we would expect that is the main focus. The question is, do we have the political will to address terrorism, or we want to justify it and condone it? So I think that's what we would like to say. Yeah, no, as I said, one question at a time. On the issue of measures for our security, as I think the same question was asked, I don't want to discuss publicly, but of course we take, it is under the Vienna Convention, we expect host governments to provide security and for our premises, for our diplomatic personnel. What exact specific measures, I don't want to discuss publicly. प्रणय, आपका प्रश्न था वीज़ा पे. मैं जैसे भी बताया कि हमने वीज़ा इश्यूज़ पे, लेट मी एक्चुअली नहीं बताया था मैंने, आई थॉट हमने डिस्कस किया था. आपने देखा होगा कि हमारे जो कनाडा में हाई कमीशन और कॉन्सुलेट्स हैं, उनको किस तरह के सिक्योरिटी थ्रेट्स वो फेस कर रहे हैं, उसको आप जानते हैं. इससे उनका जो सामान्य कामकाज होता है उसमें बाधा पड़ी है, उससे डिसरप्शन आई है. इसीलिए हमारी हाई कमीशन और कॉन्सुलेट्स अब टेम्पररीली वीज़ा एप्लीकेशंस नहीं प्रोवाइड कर पा रही हैं. हम इस सिचुएशन को रेगुलर बेसिस पे रिव्यू करते रहेंगे, इसकी समीक्षा होती रहेगी. पर अभी के लिए ये सिक्योरिटी सिचुएशन जो कनाडा में और कैनेडियन गवर्नमेंट की इनएक्शन से रहा है, उसके लिए हम इसको अस्थायी रूप में हम इसको वीज़ा आवेदन का जो प्रोसेस है उसमें बाधा पड़ रही है, और इसीलिए हमने उसको अभी उसको स्टॉप कर रखा है. I know there'll be questions on this in English, so let me say that in English. You are aware of the security threats being faced by our High Commission and consulates in Canada. This has disrupted their normal functioning. Accordingly, our High Commission and consulates are temporarily unable to process visa applications. We will be reviewing the situation on a regular basis. That's what I wanted to respond to it on Pranay's question on visas. Megha, I think you asked on Pakistan comments. I don't even know how to quite respond to that. Pakistan, if there is the last country, I think, talking about credibility, and I don't think anybody really takes their comments seriously at all. I think that covers it. Sahil, I had talked about security. Rajesh, yeah, look, if there is any country, if you're talking about reputational issues and reputational damage, if there's any country that needs to look at this, I think it is Canada and its growing reputation as a place, as a safe haven for terrorists, for extremists, and for organized crime. And I think that's a country that needs to worry about its international reputation. I think that covers it. Can I take the next rounds of it? I saw your hand a long time. Yes, I'll come to you. Yeah, please. We're staying on Canada, right? Yeah, go ahead. Let's hear. Yeah?
This is Karishma Mehrotra from the Washington Post.
Okay.
I wanted you to clarify the comment where you said that there should be parity in strength between the different diplomatic missions. Are you saying that the current reduction in the Canadian mission today was a result of an Indian request to downsize its presence in New Delhi, or was it an active measure taken by Canada to do so? Can you clarify that the parity statement you made?
Siddhan.
Hi, sir. I'm Siddhan from CNN-News-18. Sir, former diplomat has made a comment on a national TV a week back, saying that there was always a trouble for Indian Army officers to get visa, those who have served in specific locations in India like Jammu Kashmir, northeastern state, to get Canadian visa. Was Ministry aware about it, and have we ever raised this issue to the Canadians? And also, sir, my follow-up question, E.M. Jaishankar...
I haven't even answered. How can you have a follow-up question?
Sir, E.M. Jaishankar is in New York, sir. We have been told...
No, sir. Honorable Minister is in Parliament.
Oh, yes, sir.
Follow-up question called off. Yes, I'll come to everybody. I assure you, there's time. Yes, Microphone, please.
This is Yeshi Seri from the New Indian Express. When Prem Trudeau was in Delhi for the G20, did he raise this issue of Nijar whilst he was here with the Prime Minister? Did he make these allegations that he's raising in Parliament, or did this come as a surprise to all of us? During
Who's
the
us?
meet, us meaning India, because he was here and he had a meeting with the PM Modi, and Khalistan issue was raised over there. Did this come up in the conversation at all?
Okay. Yeah, behind. It's just many hands. I'll come to all of you guys. Wait.
Sir, we also have a e-visa process. Parikshit from CNBC.
Thank you, Parikshit.
So we also have an e-visa process. Has that been suspended as well? And does this temporary suspension of visas apply to all categories? The Canadian Embassy, we are getting to know from associations, travel associations, that they're still issuing visas.
Who?
The Canadian Embassy. Do we have any clarity whether Canada has also taken reciprocal action and stopped?
Okay. You had, yes, ma'am? I'll come to you. Yeah.
I'm Amity from Business Line. The Canadian High Commission has said in a statement today that some of its diplomats have been facing threats on various social media platforms, and they have also cited the Vienna Convention and said that they would be expecting the host government to provide security. So will there be a reassessment of the security situation as far as the Canadian High Commission is concerned?
Okay. Let me finish that, sir. Kallol, I'll come to this side then.
Kallol Bhattacharjee from The Hindu. Sir, yesterday the Australian Foreign Minister reminded the issue of rule of law. And they believe that, say, terrorists should be dealt through that process. So I really want to know what is the current Indian perspective on that.
On rule of law?
When it comes to dealing with terrorism, do you think that rule of law is something that India would follow when dealing with a terrorist or an alleged terrorist who is away from Indian shores and Indian arms of justice?
You want to answer to that?
How would you deal with the Australian Foreign Minister's remarks?
I wouldn't, but I'll give you a response to your query. Reza? I'll come to you, ma'am.
Reza from the Hindustan Times. Just wanted a quick clarification about the advisory we had issued yesterday. It had a very specific mention about politically condoned hate crimes. Are we saying that the Canadians haven't acted with alacrity on hate crimes of this nature?
Okay. Somebody else had a hand up? Yeah. I'll come this side. I think this. Oh, no. You had a hand up. Sorry. Apologies. You had a hand up. Yeah, go ahead. No. Yeah. Okay. You want to do first? Go ahead.
I'm Sunita from Times Now Bharat.
Is the microphone on?
Sunita from Times Now Bharat. सर जो कनाडा में इंडियन स्टूडेंट्स स्टक हैं उनके पेरेंट्स बहुत वरिड हैं यहाँ पे उनके लिए क्या?
Okay. I'll come back to this side. Yeah. Rishabh, I just give you anything, but you did a question. Follow up? Okay. Go ahead.
So, follow up from my last question itself. Is there any particular reason for the reduction of numbers of diplomat?
Okay. Yeah.
सर मैं जो वैंकूवर में इंडियन कॉन्सुलेट
इंट्रोड्यूस कर लें हम जस्ट
विजयलक्ष्मी हूँ इंडिया टीवी से सर जो मार्च 2023 में हमला हुआ था भारतीय कॉन्सुलेट पे सैन फ्रांसिस्को में उस पर क्योंकि एनआईए ने 10 एक्यूज की लिस्ट यहाँ पर जारी की है लोगों से जानकारी मांगी है अगस्त में हमारी एक टीम भी वहाँ गई थी उस पर कोई अपडेट किस तरह का वहाँ से हमें मिल रहा है?
Okay. Yeah. Go ahead, Krishnan.
Hi, sir. It's Krishnan Kaushik from Reuters. So, building on Reza's question, India had issued an advisory which mentioned growing anti-India activities and politically condoned hate crimes. Can you provide any specifics if they were shared or if they are any that you can share with us?
Okay. बताइए आपका yeah microphone.
All right, that is the spokesperson of the Ministry for External Affairs saying that yes, India has decided to suspend visa operations, which means that people who are trying to apply for an Indian visa, people who are based in Canada trying to apply for an Indian visa, temporarily will not be able to access visa services, and that is on account of, in the words of the External Affairs Ministry spokesperson, security concerns. The High Commission and the consulates in Canada have received security threats, and that has caused disruption in services. And so the Indian government has decided now to suspend visa services temporarily. A review is going to be conducted. But for now, there is no access for any visa service facilitation in Canada at this point in time. That's the clarification coming in from the Indian government. Remember, we saw this morning that the service provider BLS International had on its website said that it was a notice from the Indian mission in Canada saying that with effect from the 21st of September, visa services were being suspended till further notice. There was no statement from the Ministry of External Affairs until this clarification that's just come in a few moments ago. Now the MEA clarifying and confirming that yes, indeed, visa services stand temporarily suspended will be reviewed in due course of time. Jayant Dasgupta, the former envoy to the WTO, joins us now. Two big headlines coming in there. One, of course, the clarification as well as the corroboration that, yes, visa services suspended in Canada. This is a decision of the Indian government. This is a temporary measure, but we don't know when the Indian government will decide to review this. Your first thoughts on this, Mr. Dasgupta, and how do you expect Canada to respond?
Well, I think this only represents an escalation of the tiff that started with the Prime Minister's statement in the Canadian Parliament. The Canadians could also retaliate, possibly. I hope they don't, and I hope the Indian government also will resume visa services in Ottawa and other places shortly.
This is an escalation, Mr. Dasgupta, but the manner in which it is being presented at this point in time, the Indian government saying, look, there are security threats that have been made against the High Commission and consulates, and that has disrupted operations in Canada, and hence we are taking these measures of a temporary suspension. Do you believe this gives room for Canada perhaps to review the possibility of a retaliation and the impact, because it's the outflow of Indians seeking Canadian visas, which the number is significantly higher. There is absolutely no parity in the traffic two ways.
That's true. The threat must be there to Indian diplomats in Canada. So the Canadian government, I think, needs to step up the security arrangements that it has provided to the Indian mission and to the diplomats, and allay any fears that India has on this count. But I must say that I have also read that the Canadian visa services in India, they are also getting scaled down in view of some threats which the Canadian diplomats seem to have received on the social media. So I think on both sides, what needs to be done is confidence-building measures and to step up security and allay each other's misgivings and fears.
Yes, that's in fact the other headline that's coming in from the MEA press briefing that's on. And what we heard this morning from the Canadian Embassy was that the Canadian Embassy in India was recalibrating its head count, was rationalizing its head count. What we have now heard from the Indian External Affairs Ministry through its spokesperson is that India seemed to have suggested that there should be parity, that the head count of Canadian diplomats and Canadian officials on Indian soil was higher than the number of Indian officials in Canada. And in the words of the Ministry of External Affairs spokesperson, there needed to be parity, and hence Canada was perhaps going to reduce its head count here in India. So it almost seems to suggest that India has asked Canada to bring down the head count.
Yes, it appears so, but then this may only be half the truth. So we need to get the full details of this before venturing any comment.
Yes, this is, of course, what we've just heard there from the press briefing that the Ministry of External Affairs is holding. Let's also bring in Mr. S.D. Muni, former diplomat, with us. Mr. Muni, many thanks for joining us here. It is now confirmed that the Indian government confirming that, yes, visa operations in Canada have temporarily been suspended on account of security concerns and security threat to the High Commission and consulates. How would you read this? This is, of course, an escalation, but the possibility now of reciprocity on the part of Canada, what would you expect, given the fact that India is saying, look, we're doing so temporarily based on security perceptions?
Well, I think it is partly justified because, there have been voices in Canada, particularly of Mr. Patwant Singh Pannu, who was an associate of Niger, that we will kill all the Hindus, we will push all the Hindus out of Canada. Then there have been vandalization of various temples and Indian establishments. Even you would recall that in New Delhi, in the metro, the Khalsa Force, Sikh Khalsa Force, tried to vandalize it. So if this is what the situation is, I think it is absolutely essential on the part of Government of India to be on caution and alert and take all the measures which they can.
Right. Based on threat perception as well as you point out, the threats that have been publicly made, the Indian government saying that they have decided now to temporarily suspend visa operations in Canada. A review will happen regularly, in the words of the spokesperson of the Ministry of External Affairs. But do you believe, Mr. Muni, that Canada will now reciprocate, will retaliate, or do you believe that it will perhaps wait and watch?
No, I think we have been reacting to what the Canadians have been doing. They have issued advisories, so we issued advisory. But at the same time, the situation has gone pretty bad. And I think President Trudeau should not have. He's saying that his investigating agencies are still looking into the case. The credible investigations are taking place. He should have waited for a few days for those credible investigations to come out and then level the kind of wild charges which he has put on India. Under these circumstances, I think we are entitled to take reciprocal steps. And your first question was about the number of diplomats. I think that's going little far. We should have avoided that, because we are not applying this criteria to any other mission in New Delhi or anywhere else. And it is impossible that the number of diplomats which we have should be held by the other country. So I think we should keep on the security aspect. We should keep on the illegitimate allegations which have been put against us and try and restrain the situation rather than escalating it in any way.
That's an important point, Mr. Muni, and I just want you to elaborate a little bit for the understanding of our viewers on that. So once again, for context, what we heard this morning from the Canadian Embassy was that they were looking at rationalizing headcount in India, again, based on security perceptions. What we heard now from the Ministry of External Affairs spokesperson was that India has sought parity in the headcount, and hence the Indian government believes that there will need to be a reduction as far as the Canadian diplomatic corps and officials are concerned on Indian soil. This need for parity, as has been expressed by the government, by the Ministry of External Affairs, why does that concern you, Mr. Muni?
No, this has not been the diplomatic practice all along. Therefore, and if we are asking that for Canada, that Canada should have the equal headcount in diplomatic mission, we are not going to ask it to any other country. So on our part, it becomes a somewhat imbalanced reaction. That's what I'm saying, that there was no, we should match the Canadian initiatives. If they are saying we will have the headcount, yes, we will also have the headcount and see what can happen. But equal to our numbers is something which is setting a criteria for now and perhaps also in future. To my personal thinking, I think that is something which could have been avoided.
Right, but on the issue of suspension of visa services temporarily, in the words of the Ministry of External Affairs, Mr. Muni, as well as Mr. Dasgupta, saying that given the threat perception, given the security considerations, this is a move that perhaps is warranted at this point in time. That is the view that's coming in from the Indian government. A confirmation coming in on that front. Of course, there is no timeline, but there is a review that will be regularly taken, is the Ministry of External Affairs viewpoint at this moment. With that, it is time for us to wrap up this edition of Business 360. Thanks very much for watching. Do stay tuned. The news will continue here on CNBC-TV18.